Good morning. I'm so excited to be here with you today. We've got a special guest that's going to join us in a little while, but I got a couple questions for you. You know, our focus that we've been on for 2023 has been to build a rhythm back into our life. We felt like COVID just stole all the rhythms of life, and the news and the government and the announcements and the mandates were just kind of telling us what to do, and we just obeyed, most of us. We just kind of sat back and let it happen. Pandemic did happen. It was crazy and the world went crazy, but we got our rhythms robbed. And in our Juice Plus business, or in any business, whether it's building a business, raising a family, teaching kids in school, the rhythms are important. They bring consistency and replication and duplication into our lives. And I'm sure our guest today will talk about how traditions and replications and orders and discipline are so important to leadership in our military and our government and our freedoms. But right now, let's just take a minute before we dive into focusing on freedom and what that means. Let's focus in on our rhythms again for just a minute. Let me switch to our other screen here for just a second. You know, this whole quarter, we're focusing on the word focus. I keep saying that. It sounds weird. The month of July is freedom. August is going to be consistency. And September is going to be on team. But right now, we're kicking off a new month. We have two bookends that we focused on to establish our rhythm, if you're joining us for the first time. And that is the start well. We want to start each month with good intentions, with a plan, with goals, bringing in our employees, our team, our leadership to help us do that. Asking those on our team and our army, asking them what their goals are so that they can become a part of our bigger goal. And then we work the plan. Then 1 week left into the month, we assess where we are so that we can finish strong. And this is our Start Well call for July. It feels like we're 5 days or almost a week into the month. We are, but the holiday kind of robbed us of a few days. I would love for you guys to share in the chat while we're going here. I think it's fun to hear. What is something you and your family did that was patriotic yesterday? I saw a quote from the New York Times this morning that even though it doesn't look like it, the 4th of July brought out the fact that most Americans are still very proud and patriotic. And I believe that, and I want that so much for our kids and our future. I mean, we were in our pontoon boat in the middle of the lake watching fireworks, playing God Bless America as loud as we could last night. You know, and my new son-in-law, he's a Afghan combat vet, and, you know, we just celebrated some of the things and the prices that he paid to be here with us. And he was reminiscing on how many of his buddies he saw die fighting for our freedom over there. So we were almost in tears, patriotic in the lake, in the middle of the lake in a boat watching fireworks. But freedom became just important in that moment. And I think this rhythm we're trying to establish is the grounds for you to claim the freedom this business can have for your family. One of my favorite things to say, you've heard me say it over and over again, is this business can, if you'll sacrifice and build it, can be your path to stop trading hours for dollars the rest of your life. There are lots of entrepreneurial things out there you can go do, but there are not very many businesses that pay you tomorrow off what you did yesterday or pay you next year off what you did last year. And that's what this business allows, okay? So a couple of announcements. As we kick this month off, I want you to think about a few things, and then I'm going to bring Chris on here in just a minute. This is our new CEO and his wife Heidi with Lori and I on our trip to Chicago. And I mentioned this before, I think on our end of the month call last month. But he's a visionary. He's a veteran in our industry, and he challenged us to do something. And I hope you guys are participating in this. It's the 5th day, and I've already got my 5th text sent out. But he just challenged us to do one thing, and that's just reach out to one person per day for 90 days. What he's acknowledged that I think sometimes get lost because our product's so amazing, the research so amazing, is that no matter how good our product is, guess what? We are in the people business. And I think Chris would acknowledge no matter how good the gun is or no matter how good the weapon is, the Army's all about the people. It's all about the men and women that are enlisted under the leadership of guys like Chris. In just a minute, we'll talk about that. But I want you to go to that makealife.com/90 if you haven't already. We've got a text message campaign that'll just wake you up and hold you accountable every day. We've got a memory jogger sheet you can use just for the 90-day challenge. We've got links to our social media channels that are going to be publishing 90-day challenge content on a regular basis. A new reel's coming out today, so you might want to join that. But I really believe, guys, this is a kind of that line in the sand post-COVID. Are you still in the coma? Or are you awake? If you can't text one person per day, you're probably in the wrong business. Embrace that statement. Hold on to it. Don't feel like, somebody's pushing you out the door. If you can't text one person and have to start one conversation per day, you can't build a business in our world and what we do. So we're just trying to get you on a path of some consistency of doing this because we know it'll be a game changer for your business, okay? A couple more things and I'm going to bring on Chris. I'm going to do one thing I don't normally do. It's Chris and I met, General Chris Nowland and we met with him and his wife. I was doing an event. I was speaking at a little leadership boot camp thing in somewhere in Maryland. I think it was Rockville, Chris, if you can remember. I don't know if you remember that's where it was or not. But he was there, and our spirits, our souls just aligned and connected. But I want to read for you Chris's bio. I'm going to pull Chris in right here so you can see his amazing face. Just one sec. Hang on. I've got a little bit of technology we got to pull off, and I'm going to pull Chris in. Chris, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Can.
Okay, good. Well, I'm going to introduce you. I don't know if were you hearing what we were doing before, or could you not hear that? You could. You were good. All right. So he knew we were. We had a little technology challenge this morning. We knew it was going to work, but we didn't really know if he could hear what was going on right before he came in or not, and it did work. But let me just read his bio. Not because I want to just build him up. I do want to build him up, but I want you to know who he is. And in this moment, we're one day late because yesterday was the 4th of July. But it just makes me proud to be an American. It makes me proud to know people like Chris because through all the political changes that go on, they were steady and focused and just, they're fighting for us. They're fighting for our freedoms. And when you really sit down and think about that, it should mean a lot to you too. And let me read you his bio, and then we'll start. He and I are just going to start a little dialogue here. So let me read this to you for just a minute, real quick. So Chris has got actually 37 years experience if you count his time at the Air Force Academy, but more than 20 years of senior executive leadership in business and management, aerospace operations. He brings a great depth as an advisor today to world leaders, to business leaders, but his career culminated as a lieutenant general working in the Pentagon. He's highly experienced in interacting not just with the White House, but he's interacted, bless his heart, with members of Congress, national media. That may be the toughest thing in the world to do today because you don't know what they're going to repeat, which part of what you said they're going to repeat. It's a challenge. And I'm very proud that Chris has done that. And he's worked with leaders inside and outside of government. He's still doing it today. He shared with me some things he was doing when we were on the phone last week. He was in another country as a consultant with world leaders, just even as recent as like Ukraine and Russia issues. I mean, he's still in the game, in the battle, even though he's a retired general. He began as an Air Force fighter pilot. And, you watch Top Gun, I know that was Navy, but I think of Chris sometimes when I see that movie, just what would Chris do, in that maneuver or that move. But he went on to be to command a squadron, a wing, and a numbered Air Force, I guess numbered Air Force levels. I'm not sure what that is. It number of, Chris, or numbered?
It's numbered Air Force. That was 12th Air Force.
Okay.
Which was 12 wings and 47,000 people.
Wow, 47,000 people in his squadron. That's amazing. But beyond his commissioning as an officer and his bachelor's degree from the Air Force Academy, he earned 2 master's degrees and was also recognized as an Olin Fellow following a year in Harvard University's Institute of Strategic Studies. Chris' final assignment was as the Air Force Chief of Staff for Operations, where he formulated policy supporting air, space, cyber, irregular warfare, counter-proliferation, homeland security, and weather operations. It's a lot. But Chris's specific areas of expertise include strategic planning, air, cyberspace, information operations, human performance, operational integration, organizational structures, change management, financial management, and team building. He's a command pilot with over 3,500 hours in the F-15, A-10, T-38, T-6, and T-37. And I'm just super excited just to be here with Chris for a minute. Chris, thanks for joining and taking a minute. You've been a world traveler lately.
My pleasure. And Curt, it was in Maryland. You've got a really good memory. We were over there doing a little coaching thing. You were supporting that, and it's an excellent memory. And yeah, no, my pleasure to be here, and pleasure to be with everybody in the 4th of July weekend. Thank you all for taking the time, and I'm excited to share some stories with you and some insights.
You know, one of the things, I called Chris, it was funny because I thought Chris didn't like me anymore because I kept sending him emails, but I had forgotten that he'd retired, because when I met Chris, he was like about to retire, but he wasn't retired yet. So I had gotten his military email, and I'm like, well, he doesn't like me anymore. I keep sending him emails, and I keep sending him emails. And then, so I called Jennifer. I said, Chris won't email me back. And I thought we were buds, you know. And so I had his wrong email. He had since retired, and I got his new email, and we connected. And we've just shared some amazing stories. Trips he's on, places I've been, places he was in the moment. And I don't know how God ordained that, but when we met, we just knew we were buddies right away. It was just a funny thing.
Yeah, well, I would never ghost. Nobody ghosts Curt Beavers. Believe me.
That is not true. That is not true. There are a lot of people that ghost in this world, but I think it's their own problem, not the person they're ghosting. I think they have issues most of the time. But
absolutely true.
So when I was coming up with our theme for this month, I was thinking about the 4th of July, but I had shared with the guys, Chris, last month, one of the biggest downfalls in our business was people not being able to manage themselves. That they get into a business where they had always had a boss, they'd had a regimen, they'd had a routine, and they couldn't figure out to manage themselves. And it all happened when they got exactly what they wanted. They got freedom, and they didn't realize there was a responsibility that came with having freedom. And I'd love for you just to kind of throw that word out there and talk about, what does it take? If you're going to own that freedom, it doesn't just happen and you quit. Our military's been working a long time to maintain and own that freedom that we have. Can you just speak into that concept of sometimes when you get freedom, it's there's still an activity involved?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So the idea of the military. Remember, we're older, so some might be not as old as us. But remember when we used to say, "Oh." I do remember this distinctly. When I joined the military, they said, you joined the service. They didn't say you joined the Air Force, you didn't join the Army, you joined the service. Because the generations before us understood that joining the military involved service to the nation and sacrifice. It required sacrifice for your family and everybody else. And over those 37 years, 33 at active duty and the 4 years at the academy, they instilled service into your mindset. So you talked about traditions, you talked about work ethic, you talked about how you do your DMO, daily method of operations. That was pounded into you in the military. And because of that, I have a very consistent lifestyle that I like to live, which revolves around the most important things in my life. You know, prayer, health, family, business. And then I try to schedule those type of things. But it is easy to get knocked off track, Curt. It's very easy to get knocked off track because there's so many distractions in today's world.
Well, you know, it makes me feel like, Chris, anything that has great value has great cost. You know, there's nothing that has a lot of value that doesn't have some cost of achieving it. And yeah, I don't know if you've seen this in the military, but in today's world, I feel like this younger emerging generation, there's an entitlement mindset that we kind of have to work a little harder to overcome than we did, let's say, 20, 30 years ago. Because I know, like even my kids, they want to get in business with me, but they want to have what we have the first day, and they don't realize what we did, the work we put in to get to where we are, especially that first 5 years. With you leading literally tens of thousands of people, have you experienced, we want this younger generation, and you all got to have young soldiers come into the Army because you need that youth and strength and vitality. But is that mindset there and something you all have had to work to overcome too?
Oh, absolutely. Because, and every generation has their unique characteristics. But let's face it, I travel the world. I was just in Germany, as you said, and I see Europe. Europe is very wealthy, but we are the richest nation on earth. There's no doubt about it. And because of that, there is a lot of sense, particularly with the media that we have today, that I should be able to jump right to the top. And it never works that way. By the time I got 12th Air Force, I had been in the Air Force almost 28 years, working my way up to get to the point where I was in a position and had the experience levels to understand how to lead all those people. But you said this business, there's some commonalities in this business and commonalities in life. Besides the daily method of operations, two of the things I brought with me when I left the military is the number one mission in the military is get the mission done. And for me as a fighter pilot, back to Top Gun, I did do dogfighting. That's what the F-15s did. We had to clear the sky of the enemy. Now, we like to kill them a long way off. That's a different story. But the point being is to get the mission done, which requires focus every day, preparing, experience, and you work your way up. You don't come right up to be Tom Cruise. You got to work your way up to be those weapons officers that were in that movie. But the other part of it is I taught the number 2 job of a leader. Second job is to create an environment at work where somebody knows me and cares about me. So if you care about people, if you care about your customers, if you care about your team, and you remove the outcome and you're just thinking about I'm caring for them and knowing what they want to do, back to your point about your 90 days, you guys are going to get together, figure out what the goals are, what the plan is, and then build the plan and then assess the plan. That is perfectly in line with what we would have done and want our leaders to do in the military. So that transfers directly into Juice Plus. My wife, Kristen, for those who know her, is an NMD. She's a classic example of using that every day, that mantra, knowing her customers, knowing her teammates, and then helping them get along, just like you, Curt.
Chris, you and I were talking last week. We had so much fun catching up, guys. I wish you could have been a fly on the wall in our conversation. But I told you about this, Chris. Remember me telling you about this little paperweight that I got in 1989? And it says, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's exactly what Chris just said is one of the 3 main tasks that they had in the military. And I found that to be true in our business. I never was blessed or never was in the military. Sometimes I wish I had served, but God, didn't have that in my life at that time in game. But the learning how not to become an information dumper, because in the military he could recite orders and codes and what the rules were, but if that person didn't know he cared, just like in our business, it's going to go in one ear and out the other. They don't receive it well until they know you care. Then they're on your mission with you, and that's so important in our business model today. Chris, one of the other things that I think, Chris and I are safe. We already decided we could be spontaneous. So some of the things we've talked about and some are just going to catch us by surprise. This one might catch you by surprise, Chris. But let's say we have a war to win, okay? Let's pretend like you building the business that you want for your family. Because I like to say, let's build a business that allows you to stop trading hours for dollars. So you're in a war to build that for your family. And what I've found is like this 90-day challenge, sometimes people will try and win the war and they don't see the battle right in front of them. Meaning, I want to be an NMD, but they don't realize they've got to qualify their business and become a sales coordinator and take care of some details that are major steps along the way. And then they keep trying to win the war and they fail in the big task when they could have had victories in some of these smaller battles. How do you get a soldier or someone in your army fighting the current battle versus staring at the war they want to win?
Yeah.
Is that right? Is that an okay way to ask that for you?
Yeah. And I'll give you two things to think about. I was just in Greece, and we went to Thermopylae. And everybody who's seen the movie 300, that's 300 Spartans. In reality, there was 2,500 of them.
Yeah.
And anyway, Leonidas sets his troops, and they sustain 2 days of fighting, and then the Persians go around them. Well, he violated one of the basic rules of military is that you have to have pickets on your flanks to make sure you don't get flanked. And he didn't do that. They got flanked. They all got wiped out. And he got a movie about them and everything else. But what's the equivalent with Juice Plus? Well, Kristen has taught me one of the things that when I was in the military and I found out we were starting Juice Plus, as she put it on the table in front of me and said, we're starting to do this, is as I worked through this and understood all the health benefits, which we all know about, and I really started to embrace, but she was doing a business, and to be perfectly honest, it was a little annoying to me. That was back with Voxer, and it made the big sound. Remember Voxer and the sound videos? Anyway, so then I went to my first conference. And that was a game changer for me. And here's my point. For everybody out there, if you want to build your team's got to be solid at home first. And you've got to have your spouse and your wingman. We call that a wingman in the Air Force. You always go out as a two-ship. You got to have your wingman on board. And when I was just seeing what she was doing, I didn't get it until I went to conference. Once I went to conference, I saw, oh my goodness, this is a world wider than I ever imagined. Then Kristen made NMD, and we went back to conference, and we went to the Eltons. And I said to myself, what company does this? This is incredible. What a company. So at that point, I said, I'm going to join the business. And the very first day I retired, we were slimming with the Green Turtles in Maui, and I joined the company, and I joined Kristen's team. Why? Because the mission of this company, to serve others and to pass along health, is an unbelievable mission. But back to your point, you can't get to NMD right away. You've got to do the processes along the way. And back to Battle of Thermopylae, here's what I have found is the biggest thing in your daily method of operations. And to be perfectly honest, I've not been great at it, is following up with your customers after you've made the sale and staying with them. I fell into the trap of trying to win the war, just like you said, focusing on I need to get to that goal, and I forgot that I need to set pickets out to make sure that I get recurring customers who knew that I cared about them and wasn't in it for the sale. I was in it for their health and for their family's health and to keep moving. And in that follow-up is where a lot of the time comes, and back to your point on the 90-day challenge we have here, as you were saying that, I have a lot of old customers that I've got to follow up and get back on Juice Plus, who I haven't talked to in a long time. So that follow up and sticking with it in your daily method of operations and not making it transactional, but making it about relationships is how you stay consistent in your campaign plan to achieve the end state. But you're doing it one day at a time because that's the way it's required to do. And I haven't been good at that, to be perfectly honest. For everybody, I'm a qualified senior sales coordinator. I kind of went fast and then kind of fell off because I got distracted, not by social media, but by other job opportunities, which knocked me off my DMO. So that's a balance you got to work too.
Well, Chris, we don't want you to get knocked off your DMO, but I mean, when I caught up with Chris, not only were his nuggets of wisdom so amazing, just like he says, who does this? I mean, think about one leader saying that, and the COO of our company, that's his message going across the country right now. He's identifying the unique things that this company does. And he says, who does that? You know, and just that's what we recognize and what drives us to do these things. But I mean, when Chris said he was distracted, guys, I don't think you know that just who's here with us, that he's involved in so many things that are so important in the world today. And I'm very grateful that he's taken a few minutes with us. So I just thank you again, Chris. But back to his analogy there, that I don't know if the military did this, but it is taking those baby steps. You know, Chris, are you a John Maxwell fan at all?
I am.
Yeah. So John Maxwell says one thing. He says leaders never get tired of the basics. And that has always impressed me, because our business is, you can be the best at our business, but if you don't get back to the basics, you can't ever teach a new person. It's like that drill sergeant, or are they sergeants in the Air Force? I know that's in the Army. We have the drill. You have drill sergeants in the Air Force too.
Oh, yeah. We came from the
Same title.
Army.
Okay.
Remember?
I didn't know if it was the same title in that branch because my son and I were talking about drill sergeants last night, and one of the things that I think is so important, the drill sergeant has probably done the things he's doing 10,000 times. He's brought how many new groups of people has he brought through that basic training scenario? But you know what? If he ever got tired of the basics, the next new person would not get the training they needed. And in our business, you may be the best at getting a customer, but I think Chris would acknowledge that even though you're good, you may be able to do math in your head. You still got to teach your kids 1 + 1 = 2. You can't always give them the answer. And that drill sergeant, doesn't he have to go back if he knows that new group of troops coming in, and we've always got new troops in our teams? He's got to get back to the basics every time, doesn't he?
Absolutely. He's got to get back and teach those fundamental things. And one of the most important things to learn, we're talking about freedom.
Yep.
And people look at big freedom, and we all have responsibility with freedom when it comes to, civic duty, service. I told you service. I learned service from my mom and dad who were in the military. And Kristen and I have served, and when we served in our 33 years, we moved 23 times.
Wow, that's sacrifice.
So our kids learn service. And how do you exemplify freedom and service? Sometimes it's just by the way you approach life. Back to your point. How you live and how you deal with changes, which all comes back to there's some fundamental things you have to do, but there's also a mindset that's associated with it.
Yeah.
Viktor Frankl.
Oh, I love Viktor Frankl.
For those who remember Viktor Frankl was a psychologist who was asked by the Nazis to go to the death camps. And after the war, he wrote an important thesis about what he saw. And he defined freedom as the moment between stimulus and response. Nobody can ever take that freedom away from you. And he saw that in the death camps. And for those Catholics out there, we have Max Kolbe, who was a priest who gave up his life for somebody else and went to the death box because he chose that for him, and they could never break his freedom. He lived for 11 days. They finally had to kill him because he wouldn't die. But anyway, that was his choice. We all face that every day. Stimulus and response. When you go out and you talk to a customer and they're like, hey man, this thing's not working for me, blah, blah, blah. We've all heard it. It's too expensive. It doesn't work. Google says, you have a chance right there in your own freedom and your own business. How are you going to respond to that? And that freedom and that learning how to do that is exactly what we teach all our recruits, back to the basics. We bring them back to the virtues that we use in the Air Force Academy. Integrity, service before self, and excellence in all you do. And that integrity is inviolate, and you bring them back to that every time so that they come back to the virtues, so that their mindset is right and they're willing to move forward.
I cannot believe you brought that up, Chris, because that's how parallel our minds are thinking this morning about this freedom. That book, Man's Search for Meaning, that Viktor Frankl wrote, is one of the, it's a put you to sleep at night kind of book. It's a big book, but it's great things in there. My mom used to, and she passed away a year ago, she used to always tell me and teach Viktor Frankl's, I don't know if this was his quote or just kind of the statement of what you said of the, what did you say, stimulus versus response.
Yep.
She would say, he said it is, if your why is strong enough, the how will come. And it's
right.
it's always about, why are you in this business? Is the freedom that you want in this business, if you can picture that, if you can see that tomorrow with the freedom, you're going to be willing to do the things today to get that freedom. And that's what Viktor Frankl saw every time he was in that prison cell. People dying all around him, but he had a reason he wanted to get out. So he stayed focused on the reason, and he survived. And then he thrived,
And it's just like to your point, with us and mindset as we're moving through our business, when you have that opportunity and those rejections, you go back to your why. If you're in it for service to others, to help get people healthy, just like the company is, you know what I'm saying? Then you realize that you don't burn that bridge. and then you just put them in your follow-up. This is the bad part on my part. Put them in their follow-up and keep dripping on them, because when you speak the truth, eventually people will come back to recognize that you had the truth.
Yep. Yep. Chris, people loved your three mindset pieces, and someone didn't get to write them down. Can you repeat those three mindset pieces you said again?
Are the virtues,
Yeah.
excellence, service before self. Oh my gosh, I'm upside down now. Excellence, service to self, integrity.
Yep.
What you say, your yes means yes, your no means no, and you never, ever impinge your integrity.
That's good. So whoever asked that question, I think it was Carrie in the comments. Carrie, hopefully you got that. But just remember, this whole thing's going to be it's recorded. So if you miss something, I'd rather you listen and go back and take notes on the replay than try and catch every word, because it's so good. The nuggets are so good. I guess, Chris, just to we've been 30 minutes, and just to kind of take us to a place of closing. I mean, I'd love to do this again if you're willing. I think you and I could do some strategic stuff again. We don't have to focus on freedom, but if you were a soldier, there's a task at hand, and you're trying to motivate that soldier to be at the top of his game for that task at hand, or it's a Juice Plus partner, and they've decided that they really do want this freedom for their family. There's a difference, though, in business, traditional business, and in the military. There's someone who has linear authority over you. They can fire you, punish you, or whatever. Our business is a little bit more of a volunteer army, so it's a little different, because you can't make them do it. You have to make them want to do it. And I liken our business, Chris, a little bit more to a pastor running a church, almost, than a CEO running a business, because you're still on mission and on task, but you have a volunteer army that you want to keep motivated. So if you're a leader on this call right now, and you want to motivate yourself, number one would be the first step, or if you had somebody that says, I want to do this, help me, I'll give you an example. We experienced working from home during COVID. We'd never been able to experience that before. We've experienced that, and we saw how important it was for us to be there and be available for our family, and we were in a rat race before. We don't want to go back to that. We want to build a business here. What would you do as a leader to let them know, like, how do you motivate somebody to put forth the effort to do what's in front of them versus just reacting and waiting for it to happen? Because that's what the world does if you don't get there.
Right. Well, part of it is, Napoleon had what he called the coup d'oil. Could you see the battlefield? Could you see the strategic moment? So let's be honest here with Juice Plus partners. Not every partner is created equally.
Right.
And you're going to look at your partners that you're joining, and if you see with your experience that this is somebody that's going to reach out there and do it, never that you discount anybody, but if you see somebody who's you think's got the potential to move into this company, first thing you need to do is you need to work on their why. Why do they want to do this business? And they've got to have that fire down inside that says they're going to make it through the hard times. And then you're going to teach them that pros do small things done consistently. Consistency is the key over time. Consistency is why we take Juice Plus every day. Consistency is why we work out every day. So in love, work, and health, how are those three things consistently done in there? And then back to, okay, look at your overall ability with this business to build over time with the residual income that you're getting, so that over time you can create a stepping stone. So I would emphasize that with them, and then go back to this mindset that we were talking about, and really have them focus on why are you doing this, and connect back to their why, back to Viktor Frankl, connect back to your why, and then be consistent and persevere. One of the things that I do is I was formed by my daughter into this. One of my goals is to live a life of heroic virtue. Heroic virtue means In that stimulus first response there, I try to figure out what best version of myself do I want to be and what virtue do I want to bring out in this moment. But guess what? A life of heroic virtue is not easy. As a matter of fact, you can't be a hero. Go to any movie that we go to watch. When you go to watch a movie, what are you looking for? You're looking for the hero who overcomes challenges and ends up on top. So if you want to be a Juice Plus NMD or a Juice Plus PMD, or if you want to be a Juice Plus QSSC, there's challenges in it, and you've got to approach it with heroic virtue and get after it moment to moment to moment, and then celebrate your wins. Celebrate your small wins with your team. That would be my recommendation.
Chris, thanks so much. Chris is just he's led so many. I mean, I think about 47,000, and how do you influence that many people? But you do it bit by bit, piece by piece. You identify your leaders and you pour hard and heavy into your leaders. I mean, Jesus was a pretty good example. He had thousands, but he poured his life into 12, and one turned out to be a crook. So I mean, you got to pour your life into those that are close and that are around you. And guys, as we wrap this up, if there was a way to do an applause and a standing ovation on Zoom, I would ask you guys to do that. Y'all can use the clapping hands emoji for Chris being here with us, and we'll see how many, maybe the emojis will just all of a sudden stand up on Zoom. I don't know how that works on these virtual calls. But I want you to understand that you sit here and you look at Chris and look at the military career that he's had, and we think about yesterday. And think about, we enjoy a freedom sometimes that we don't appreciate, and we don't understand what it took to get there. That's a little bit like the entitled new generation wanting something, but they don't see what it took to get there. Everybody hasn't been in the military, that's given, and we're so grateful for those that have. But we have something that was fought for. Whether you fought for it or somebody else fought for it, it was fought for. Your family, generations down the road, can have the freedoms that most don't have because of what you do in this business. I have 4 generations in my family benefiting from the health of Juice Plus, and 3 benefiting from the full-time income of Juice Plus right now. And that creates an income stream that does pay you tomorrow. That's the book that's on the shelf behind me. Making that life not just a living. That's what I want for everybody on this call. That's what Chris saw in this business. This is what we all saw in this business, was the ability to create something that would provide that. When you found your why, are you doing something right now that's distracting you or being an obstacle to your why? Are you doing something that's funding that why? And that's what this business can do. Chris, you want to say goodbye? Any last words before I make some announcements? I think you kind of already did that, but we'd love to have any more wisdom if you got it.
No, thank you very much, Curt. Love to do this again. And to the entire team, happy 4th of July. And remember, freedom, our responsibility every day. Be a good citizen. Vote when you can. And be involved in your civics community, just like we are, in your church, so that we create a groundswell of goodwill.
Well, Chris, just from my heart, thank you for your service and the 37 years you poured into our country. So thank you so much. And we will do this again. I'm going to make a couple of announcements, guys, and you all tell Chris thanks in the comments, and I'll make sure he sees them, okay? Real quick, before we wrap up, I want you to know what things are available to you. The 90-day challenge is happening right now. Makealife.com/90 will give you the details. Our new CEO, Travis Garza, has called us to do this together, okay? It's very simple. It's one text a day. Second thing, Level Up's going to be here before you know it. I mean, literally, what's today? The 5th, almost a month away. So you can go to yourleveluptickets.com and get those. And then last but not least, let me give you the last couple of announcements we had. Oh, I just talked to Jeff Voth this morning, and the Voth family, they're recording artists from Nashville. They're coming to do our worship. Jeff Voth is coming to do our worship gathering in Charlotte, and it's going to be all about restoring the family. I truly believe that God can use our company and our business to put a message out there of how important restoration of the family is. It's the brick in the strength of our culture that's broken right now, and we're going to focus on restoring the family. Invite all your spouses. More info on that at makealife.com/worship, or you can text that keyword and get information. Tickets will go on sale July 25th. We've averaged somewhere around 3,000 over the years at our prayer breakfast. We can't feed you anymore because of all the COVID changes and the room availability. We've got room for 1,600 only. That's all we could get in Charlotte, and tickets will go on sale for $10 on July 25th at 11 a.m. So mark that on your calendar. And last but not least is what's coming up next. On our Q3 coaching, remember we've got focus. This month we're on freedom, consistency, and team. We're going to focus on those things. And no better way to be consistent, like Chris kept hammering you guys, it's consistency. And once a day on that 90-day challenge, just do one a day. And you can't do 7 in one day and skip 6 days. That just meant you had an amazing day, but it's the consistency of one per day. And if you go to makealife.com/coaching calendar, all the upcoming events will be there. Can't wait to just walk through this season with you. Summer's hot. That means your business can be red hot too. Okay? And I thank Chris. I value our freedom. I don't know if you do as much as I do. You get tears thinking about the prices and the lives that were paid for us to have what we have today. And we do need to get out and vote. And we need to be a mouthpiece for common sense and, just whatever the word is. But common sense has got to come back and be a voice for that. Vote for that. Vote with your morals and your values, that those return to our society in a strong way. So God bless you. Chris was amazing, and we will do it again, and we'll do something strategic, maybe on a specific leadership topic, and walk you through a journey together. And hopefully Chris and I'll get to see each other in Charlotte. Y'all be good. Have a great, amazing day. I'll see some of you at Blue Ridge, and thanks for joining us today. God bless.